Welcome into another episode of my Dynasty Fantasy Football YouTube. Today I'm looking at some Dynasty stashes. As always, make sure to subscribe if you haven't. Let's go. First one, Tyjae Spears. So, like I said, I didn't say it, but I always like to start with a slightly higher valued player. I wasn't a big fan of actually what we saw from Spears last year, but he did deal with 4 separate injuries, so I haven't totally written him off. In 12 games, he had just 84 carries, 312 yards, 4 touchdowns, 3.7 yards a carry, and 30 catches, 224 yards, and a touchdown. He actually averaged a bit more work last year on the ground than he did complementing Derrick Henry in his rookie year in 2023. But there was less passing game work. Overall, Spears' role was supposed to grow in year 2, but it did not. Now, why do I have Spears as a dynasty stash? Well, the injuries to start. He dealt with 4 injuries last year: an ankle, hamstring, and 2 concussions. Before that, he hadn't had a notable injury since 2020. So it's not like we're talking about a player who's always injured. And he's healthy now. None of these injuries are still currently relevant. Now, Tony Pollard is a fine starter, but he's been overworked in 2024 and probably in the previous couple of years as well. He had the most carries and carries per game of his career. He wasn't super efficient. So for me, I think this is an opportunity also because the Titans traded away their 3rd-round pick last year for L'Jarius Sneed, and they need quarterback and wide receiver way more than running back. They're going to draft Cam Ward at number 1 overall. At 35, they might consider a wide receiver, but they're not going to draft a running back there when they already have 2 relevant running backs. I'm not saying they're not going to pick a day 3 running back. Every single NFL team, literally all 32, may pick a day 3 running back in this class. The class is that good. But whoever the running back is probably going to, at least at first, be the running back 3 on the depth chart because they're a day 3 pick. So Spears will get another chance at getting work in 2025. And maybe he'll hit. I liked him as a prospect. Anyway, he's the type of stash I'm kind of looking to hang on to throughout the off season. So next up, J.K. Dobbins, who had a return to form season in 2024. But it still hasn't translated to him signing in free agency. Now watch, he'll sign in the 2 hours between recording and release. But until then, in 13 games, he had 195 carries, 905 yards, 9 touchdowns, 4.6 yards a carry, and 32 catches for 153 yards. He averaged 15 carries a game and pretty much immediately became the starter ahead of Gus Edwards. Showed some efficiency, and I do think the injury is scaring some teams off. I'm still surprised that J.K. Dobbins has not signed. At this point, he's probably waiting for after the NFL draft so he doesn't get replaced by a rookie, and I kind of get that. When Dobbins signs, he'll gain value. He was good last year. He's not that old. This happens with every free agent player. This is a common pattern. They lose value as they remain out there in free agency. And then when they sign, they get value back. Stashes are just as much about gaining value as they are about actually looking for players who might produce. But like I said, I liked J.K. Dobbins on the field in 2024. I do think he's someone who could be a startable running back in a potential situation this year. So he's definitely a player I'd continue to stash that I like as a talent, even though he hasn't signed in free agency yet. Next up, Michael Mayer. So I've talked about Mayer a few times, but I do think we're getting into Michael Mayer's trade window heating up now that we're nearing the NFL draft. I think day 2 and day 3, a great time to look at a Michael Mayer trade. So last year, Mayer became the backup to Brock Bowers and didn't really do anything. 21 catches, 156 yards, 32 targets, 1.9 catches, and 14.2 yards a game in 11 games played. Actually, the same catches per game as 2023, but fewer yards. And he missed 6 games with a personal issue, which has never really come to light. I never figured out exactly what that was. Some people say he was upset about his role. Others say there were other issues, but there's no confirmation about what that is. So we still don't really know. Now, in the final 5 games, Mayer played 70% snap share or more in 4 of them. So he was really involved. He did have that one big game. If you remember, in week 14, people were very frustrated with Brock Bowers because Michael Mayer, has similar jersey number and caught 7 catches for 68 yards, and people were annoyed. But other than that, Mayer really didn't factor into the fantasy football landscape outside of that one game. So for me, I like Mayer as a stash candidate for a lot of reasons, but The first one, you have to remember, he was drafted not by the previous regime, 2 regimes ago. Meyer was drafted by head coach Josh McDaniels and general manager Dave Ziegler. Then those 2 were fired and replaced with Antonio Pierce and Tom Telesco. Then they were fired. And now it's Pete Carroll, head coach, John Spytek, general manager. So Meyer is on head coach number 3 and general manager number 3. And you could say it's even general manager number 4 because the Raiders had interim general manager Champ Kelly in 2023. So he hasn't even started year 3 in the NFL, and we're already on regime 3 and 3.5. So that's why he's a trade candidate, because he's from so many regimes ago. Now, Meyer is still just 23 years old. He turns 24 in July, so he's a young player. And he was a really good college prospect. He had 800 receiving yards in both of his final college seasons. It's rare to see college tight ends produce at all. And he was the 35th overall pick in the 2025 NFL draft. He was an excellent tight end prospect, not just okay. For me, in this year's class, he would be clearly the tight end 3, way ahead of the other guys outside of Tyler Warren and Colston Loveland, even with a rough start to his career. Now, what would you rather do as an NFL team? Trade a 4th or a 5th round pick for Meyer or take Mason Taylor in the 2nd round? I don't know. I might rather trade a 4th or 5th round pick for Meyer. So I do think that makes him an excellent stash candidate, because the second he's traded, he would gain a lot of dynasty value. And that's what we're looking for in our stash candidates. Now, if you like my YouTube content, you should sign up for the Patreon. I'm offering a 50% discount off your first month at all tiers using the code TylerYT. So when you go to the link in the top right corner, patreon.com/fantasyadvice, or click on that link, if you go to checkout and type in the code TylerYT, you will get 50% off your first month at whatever tier you sign up for. On the Patreon, you can get my rankings, access to the Discord, all my write-ups, direct message fantasy advice, and the ability to ask in advance questions for the YouTube videos. Look, if you are asking for my help with your dynasty team, this is a dynasty channel. I assume you have dynasty teams if you're watching this video. If you're asking for my help with your dynasty team, that will be available only for patrons. I'm not going through your roster in the YouTube comments. I'm not doing it on Twitter. I might, answer a question about something I said in the video. But if you're looking for my help with your dynasty team, that's going to be for patrons only. Tiers begin at just $5 a month, $250 with the aforementioned discount. If you want to know more about the Patreon, check out my Why You Should Join the Patreon videos on the channel. They're on the homepage on the YouTube channel under Patreon promos. And I will just say that I really hope that people continue to sign up. I know that there's a lot of crazy things going on right now, but the content, it's hard. Independent fantasy football content is tough to keep going. So, I appreciate everyone's support. I'm doing more and more Patreon-only content. But again, the Patreon supports the continued existence of this YouTube channel. If the YouTube is not bringing in patrons, the YouTube probably will go under at some point. So, and then all my content will just be behind the paywall, and I'll probably do something else with the rest of my time. So, again, I hope that people consider signing up. I promise you won't regret it. I'm very active in there every day. And if you can tell, this promo is longer because it's been a struggle over the last few weeks getting any traction on new patrons. So, again, I appreciate your consideration. And with that being said, I'll move into my next player. So the next up, Christian Kirk. And I do think Kirk could actually have some value in the Texans offense in 2025. So there were stash candidates out there. And again, we're scraping the bottom of the barrel here. So I just want to talk about players I haven't talked about that much. In 2024, Kirk in 8 games had 27 catches, 379 yards, a touchdown on 47 targets, 3.4 catches, and 47.4 yards a game. It's not terrible, but it's the worst year he had since 2020. It does kind of make sense since the Jaguars offense was broken, the emergence of BTJ as well, and Trevor Lawrence's poor play over the beginning of the year. So why do I think Christian Kirk is a dynasty stash? Well, there's some opportunity on the Texans. So the Texans lack wide receivers. Tank Dell will miss the entire 2025 season. Nico Collins is the clear wide receiver 1, but they've got nothing else. Right now, the current betting odds heavily favor the Texans taking an offensive lineman, not a wide receiver, in the first round. Now, that might be wrong, but I do think the Texans are more going to target a wide receiver in the second or maybe the third round to kind of complement Nico Collins rather than, be a higher level option. Now, CJ Stroud, to me, is still a far superior quarterback to Trevor Lawrence. In 4 years of Trevor Lawrence, I've yet to see anything that was as good as CJ Stroud's rookie year. So if I had to pick which quarterback I'd rather have CJ Stroud. And I think that assuming that they don't buck the odds or the betting odds and draft a wide receiver in the first, I do think there's going to be some weeks where Christian Kirk is relevant. Now, am I saying you should go and pay something for Christian Kirk? No, I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying that if you stash Christian Kirk and wait until those weeks maybe occur, you might then be able to sell Christian Kirk later. So if you can get him as a throw-in on a trade or otherwise, that is a relevant way to add value with Christian Kirk. Now, my final player, Malik Washington. So I did think Washington's window had kind of passed after the Dolphins signed Nick Westbrook-Ikhine in free agency, but now the Tyreek Hill news, again, has maybe opened up an opportunity. So Washington didn't do much across the whole season. In 14 games, 26 catches, 223 yards, 36 targets, 1.9 catches, and 15.9 yards per game. That's not a lot, but for a sixth-round rookie, that's actually not bad. And over the final 4 weeks, Washington was involved. He averaged 4 catches and 42.3 yards a game. That's a really good stretch. Now, why do I have him as a dynasty stash? He was an intriguing rookie prospect. I liked him in the pre-draft process. In his final college season, he had 110 catches, 1,426 yards, and 9 touchdowns. So in his final college season, he was really good. It was a fifth-year breakout, though, after switching from Northwestern to Virginia. But the production was there. I'd rather someone have some high-end production in any season than no production at all. So there was some hope for Malik Washington as a prospect, but maybe now he'll have an opportunity, potentially. Just someone to keep on the really back end of your rosters. This is a really deep dynasty stash in Malik Washington. So kind of speaking of Hill, Tyreek Hill, honestly, I'm tired of talking about Tyreek Hill. I feel like we talk about an off-field issue every offseason. I'm not going to assume that at this point, because they've proven me wrong so many times already, that the NFL is going to do the right thing and suspend Hill at all. There's some risk of that. I mean, I think Hill would be considered a multi-time offender at this point, which always increases your chances of the NFL deciding to get off their ass and do the right thing and institute a suspension. But, it is what it is. I've had no interest in rostering Hill anyway. If you are a patron of mine, watch the YouTube channel, I can't imagine that you've been in on Tyreek Hill. I've been recommending him as the sell for over a year. But at this point, nobody's going to want him. So if you have him, you're stuck with him. But there's nothing to say here. I am so sick of Tyreek Hill. He's obviously a crappy person. And I have nothing really else to add about Tyreek Hill. I'm just tired of talking about him. I'm looking forward to the day that he's irrelevant and no longer someone worth my time discussing. Speaking of a player I'm a little more interested in, Joe Flacco signs with the Browns. 1-year deal worth $4 million up to $13 million with incentives. Who knows what those incentives are? But at this point, the Browns have Kenny Pickett and Joe Flacco. Deshaun Watson, speaking of players I can't stand, and I'm glad will soon be out of relevance. Deshaun Watson will not play this year. So for me, I think it's very clear where the Browns are going, right? They're going to draft Travis Hunter with the 2nd overall pick. That's becoming very consensus. Then they'll probably target some sort of quarterback. They've had every day 2 quarterback in for a visit. Could it be Jackson Dart? Could they trade up for Jackson Dart? Could they just stand at 33 and take Jalen Milroe? Sure, they could do that. Could they wait and take Will Howard or Quinn Ewers? Yes. They're going to take some other rookie. It's not going to be Shadur Sanders, almost certainly. So we're going to have to see who it's going to be. Obviously, Flacco should be rostered in all Dynasty Superflex leagues because there is a chance that he starts week 1. I don't think it's a 0% chance. I think it's a decent chance. So you got to roster Joe Flacco. I think if it's between Flacco and Kenny Pickett, I would lean that Flacco starts week 1. But it's interesting. We saw that Flacco adds value to fantasy weapons. So if you have Jerry Jeudy, pretty good news. Maybe he'll, have the same magic with Joe Flacco that he did with Jameis Winston. So we got a couple of Patreon questions, and then we'll wrap up the show. The first, with Hill's drop in production, another Tyreek Hill question, and these repeated off-field issues, do you think Jalen Waddle will deliver this year? I'm tired of Waddle. Well, I do kind of get the frustration with Waddle. A lot of injuries, and he's just never quite lived up to what we wanted him to be. Do I think Waddle could deliver? Yes. Do I think Waddle is going to be what we originally wanted? No, I don't. I do think it's possible that Jalen Waddle outproduces Tyreek Hill this year, even if there was no issues. But in terms of like delivering, it's really, again, just a question of what you mean by delivering. Do I think Waddle is going to be a fantasy wide receiver 1? Probably not. Do I think Jalen Waddle could be fantasy relevant? Sure. So I do think he's someone I could be in on buying during rookie season, during rookie fever for a later pick that, might not give you the same range of outcomes as Jalen Waddle. I don't have any issues with Jalen Waddle as a talent. I do think he's a good player. So overall, it really depends on price. And that's something I think I'll look at in post-draft. See if he's a player I'm interested in. You may have gone over this or had a question. I actually haven't talked about this really, but what teams have holes you're most excited about them filling in the draft? What players would excite you most? Well, I'm not sure I really see it that way in terms of like a specific player going to a specific spot. But, it's a lot of the general ones. Everyone wants a running back to go to the Denver Broncos. And yes, I would really like Omarion Hampton to fill that spot. I would. I think it would be great. It's not going to happen, but I really would love if Teteroa, I got to get that, Teteroa, that's a hard name to pronounce, McMillan would fill that wide receiver 1 spot on the Panthers. It's not going to happen. They're going in a different direction. They're almost certainly going defense, probably Jalen Walker with their first pick. I would love that, though. I think they need a wide receiver 1. McMillan would be that wide receiver 1. But again, I'm not seeing that as the actual outcome. And then Ashton Genty to the Bears would be nice. But I think we're more likely getting Ashton Genty to the Raiders, which is also a good spot. I'm not saying it's bad, but having Ashton Genty in a Ben Johnson offense would just be absolutely amazing. And then I kind of like Trevion Henderson potentially to the Cowboys. That would be good. That would be a really good use of their second round pick. I would like that. And then if I'll do one more, Travis Hunter to the Browns. I like that. They are the only team that has said we see him as a wide receiver first. They could use a wide receiver. They don't have that much at wide receiver, so I'd love to see that. So there's some players that would excite me. Now, if you like the video, make sure to support the channel by subscribing. And don't forget to hit that notifications bell so you can be notified about all my exciting content as it drops. I'm going to do live streams during the draft. Day 1, probably day 2, at least for some of it. If you want my best fantasy football advice, it's available on the Patreon. Dynasty content year-round. Click on the link in the top right corner, patreon.com/fantasy advice. And at checkout, if you use the code TylerYT, which is also written out in the pinned comment, you can get a 50% discount off your first month. And like I said in the promo, every sign-up helps support my independent fantasy football content. It's a YouTube channel. But once again, thanks for watching, and I'll see you all later.